Hello, Hoops fans, and welcome to the Her Hoop Stats podcast. I am Brittany Carper, joined today by Coach Helen Williams. We are, almost the end of February, creeping into March, Coach. You know what that means. Things are winding down from the non-con. We are ramping up into the postseason. We get to talk about all the conference tournament and bubbles and all the things that make the basketball season, the best part, I think, is right here.
Yeah, we all get to prognosticate and tell people how much we know, and then the games start, and it doesn't go anywhere like our brackets. But it's fun to do it anyway. So yeah, a lot of postseason tournaments going to start here in the next couple weeks. I want to shout out today the beginning of the CIAA tournament. I think it's the best Division II tournament in the country. Great teams there. It is a tremendous atmosphere. It's in Baltimore. The games are great. The parties are great. The events are great. The alumni are great. So if you can't get there in person in Baltimore, just pull it up on ESPN Plus. But lots of good games there. I want to shout out my buddy, the head coach, Queenie Smith at Livingstone. They won today. They're not the number one seed. Winston-Salem State is, but they had 30 offensive rebounds today in their win. So I'm sure any team at any level would love to have that many second chance opportunities. So kudos to Coach Queenie Smith and her win today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime you 30 offensive rebounds, you're going to be in a pretty good spot to win the game. And if not, then I don't know. That's going to be you didn't play good defense or something like that. So, yeah, like you said, definitely opportunity for people to check that out, or if they're in the area, to show up. And I know a lot of Division III postseasons are starting, and we've talked about NYU on this podcast and their winning streak. They're looking to make it 3 straight at the Division III level, but I know there are definitely some teams that feel that they can probably knock them off this year. But just a really exciting time, obviously for college basketball, because it's what you work all season for. And at the Division I level, certainly these are teams that have been working since June, and I don't know if a lot of people understand how much time goes in.
They have no idea, Brittany. They have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think they do, but that's the crazy thing is, you start in June for something that could end in April. And so, certainly it's the best time of the year. And I know we definitely wanted today to just kind of talk about a coach that you feel has just really done an incredible job since taking over a program. At Iowa in Jensen. And so, Coach, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you, talk a little bit about her and the job you think that she's done there.
No, I think she's done a phenomenal job. She, just like John Shire at Duke, you normally don't want to follow the legend. You want to follow the person that followed the legend. But I think she has done a phenomenal job with, obviously she was a great recruiter, but it's been like a seamless build to continue to win at Iowa. And I was just thinking about her yesterday. I was like, I got to give her some kudos. I don't know her personally, but just give her kudos for the job that she's done. They're going to be really good. I don't know how far they're going to go this year, but they're even going to be better, I think, the next couple of years with seasoned veterans and the recruits that she has come in. So just wanted to give her some kudos.
Well, and I think,
I love that it's
silent. News.
I love that it silences y'all when it does it, because Brittany when they're talking, and all of a sudden all you see is her lips moving.
Yeah.
While y'all were talking about Coach Jensen, I wanted to shout out, even though I know technically it's not Her Hoop Stats News, but Coach Jensen was on Debbie Antonelli's podcast, Nothing But Net with Debbie Antonelli, and that episode actually came out today. So
you're big time if you get on Debbie Antonelli's podcast.
The producer.
Well,
is the star.
That goes without saying.
But no, if you want to check that out at BMAC1435 on all social media, I've been promoting it all day. So, and just to throw this in there at something y'all talked about at the beginning, my family jokes with me like every year because we'll all do a little family pool on March Madness. We'll fill out tournament brackets, and because I know as much as I'm supposed to know, they all expect me to win it every year. But my 5-year-old nephew won the pool last year, and
No way.
I love that. It probably picks the mascots or what sounds cool. Yeah, and
Or
typically
by the
that's
colors.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's mascot. It's definitely colors. You know, my niece's picked by who has the prettiest cheerleaders or mascots.
Mhm. I love it.
I like to just say they listen to me. It's.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely for our listeners and viewers, make sure you hop on and check out that podcast with Debbie Jan Jensen, the head coach at the University of Iowa. Anything else with it, BMAC?
No, that's all I had to say. So y'all go
Cool.
ahead and get back to your show.
Sounds good. I just wanted to touch too on, Coach Jensen, obviously, uh, also taking over that program at a time after Caitlin Clark left. But I think the build up there, and I think what she did, and I've actually was going to tweet about this the other day because I had saw someone mention the job she had done, and she went out and hired a former player and someone who had been a head coach in Randy Henderson. And I think that was a really underrated move because now she has someone on her staff that has the experience of a head coach. And I think that's such a valuable thing when you can have an assistant who's been in that chair and understands the ins and outs of the job.
There is a chasm between that 1 inch of the assistant coach seat and the head coach seat. You have no idea the difference in the two seats. And I know when I was an assistant, I was always like, I don't know why he's doing this. I don't know why she's doing that. When I get in the seat, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then you get in the seat and you're like, oh, okay, I was not privy to all of the context of why they made that decision. And then you realize, yep, everything's on you. Everything's your fault. And so you want what I call an old head on your staff who can help you navigate certain situations, who can help you know what's coming, help you get prepared. I mean, you don't know what you don't know until you get in that seat, but it is good to have someone who's been there before that you can lean on and bounce things off of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that, she obviously went out and identified, and it's been a really big piece of her staff. And then I think the really important thing is there was no drop off in their recruiting, and they continue to bring in, top 25 talent. They're bringing in, top recruiting classes. And I think, like you said, who knows what this year will bring, but they are certainly set up for the future. I mean, if anyone has had a chance to watch, especially Ava Hayden play this season, just an incredible post player. And if anyone didn't catch, I was watching their game against Nebraska last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was kind of a tip shot from the top of the key, and she went and grabbed that thing out of the air and reverse layup right before the shot clock went off. And for a 6'4" post player to have the agility and ability to do that, I think if you're a Hawkeye fan, you are certainly excited about what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean they've done a great job recruiting, great job in the transfer portal with Chit Chat Right, and even though they've had some injuries, they've still been able to navigate and played pretty well. Didn't they just beat Michigan? Did I see
They
that?
did, yep. On senior night, they just beat Michigan, and in the latest bracketology, they've actually moved up to a number 2 seed. And so again, just kudos to the job she's done there. And since we're kind of getting into that bracket talk, I know we kind of wanted just to talk about some of the bubble teams. Charlie Cream at ESPN just came out with a new bracketology. And so, it's always I think we did this last month and it was so far out, or it felt like
It
that.
was,
Like,
yeah.
you're like, oh man, what does this look like? But you go to On the Bubble, and right away here you have, the last 4 buys, which would be at this point, he has Villanova, Virginia Tech, Virginia and Clemson. And I know you're gonna 10 toes down on
And
Clemson.
toes down, baby.
But I think that this time of the year, it's so important to talk about playing your way into the
Yeah,
tournament. And notably, those two teams, Virginia and Clemson, they did that this past weekend with their wins.
big wins, big
Yeah,
wins.
yeah, and Virginia obviously took down Louisville. Clemson, beat Duke, snapped their very long winning streak. So any thoughts on those last four bye teams, Coach?
Yeah, I think Virginia and Virginia Tech play each other this weekend. I think so. That's going to be a really very important game for both of them. And then Clemson plays. Let's see who they play. They play Stanford, who also they've got some work to do if they want to get in. They've got SMU and Clemson, so it's still very important that you win the next games that you have ahead of you. Most teams have, just a couple conference games left, so going to be interesting to watch that Virginia Tech Virginia game.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about two teams that, right now he has as, last four buys. And then you mentioned Stanford, they're on the next four out list. And so when you're looking at that, you're thinking if you're Stanford, okay, if we can get, finish it off with these wins, then we can maybe get, a couple into the ACC tournament. I think, that's somewhere like a team like Stanford could play their way in.
Yeah, and the ACC right now, they're projected to have one, two, what, nine, seven teams in the tournament. So right now, Stanford is 13th. So they have quite a bit of work to do.
Yeah, and so I think, they know what's ahead of them, and obviously those are important. I think when you go down to the last four in, he has Mississippi State, Colorado, Princeton, and Nebraska. And so I think, I just really quickly touch on Nebraska. They just snapped, I think it was a 6-game losing streak. They won on a Britt Prince 3-pointer over Washington on the road. And so that's a team where you're looking at what they have left. And I'm going to pull this up here just because that way we know. They have, let's see, they have Rutgers at home, and I think that's their last game.
Yeah,
So
that's probably going to be a
you look,
win.
yeah, so you're probably penciling that in a win. So you look back at that Washington game, Coach, and how big is that for this Nebraska team?
Yeah, I mean, you just never know. Obviously, you want to win the game that you have ahead of you, but it's always interesting to see when a team, they beat a team earlier in the year. You're rooting for them to do well because it looks really good on your resume later.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think what's really going to be interesting, we've talked a little about the Ivy this year. Right now, Columbia is the automatic because of their two wins over Princeton right now. But do you see a scenario in which if Princeton wins the Ivy tournament, that Columbia would be a possible at large?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've done enough work. I mean, if Princeton and they both have pretty good non-conference schedule, and it's not like they're not playing anybody. And right now, Charlotte Green does have two from the Ivy League, so they're the only two right now. They have pretty much secured their spot in Ivy Madness. So it's just a matter of who the other two are going to be. One of those two is going to win the tournament. So yeah, I think they'll both get in. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's the tricky thing about when you're looking at this, because you have to take note of who the automatic qualifier currently is. And so what you don't know is if that was flipped, what that resume of
Yeah.
Columbia would look like stacked up against the rest of the field here. And then you have a Colorado team who again has been the absolute surprise, I think, of the Big 12.
Yeah, I didn't not think that they would be any good this year. I just was ambivalent is the wrong word. I just didn't know. Like I had to
Mhm.
see to believe, and they started, and it's really important once you get to this time of year, recency bias, to do well as you come down the stretch. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up if they can win a couple games in the tournament and in the conference tournament and go
Mhm.
from there.
Yeah, I mean, right now they are sitting at a tie for 4th with, Texas Tech at 11-5, and they've won 5 in a row. And so I think, like you said, that recency bias always, you're always looking at the last 5, the last 10, and you're seeing how well that team is playing. And so I think certainly for that Colorado team, you don't you feel like where they're at, I don't know that they could afford any slip ups with where they're at right now.
No, they can't. They can't. And there's so many teams right now that have that kind of pressure on them. They need to win out to stay where they are, or to have an opportunity to get in, to have an opportunity to play well in the conference tournament to get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, absolutely, and they have, I believe, 1 remaining game left, and that is at BYU. So, certainly not an easy place to play, and, so if you're the Colorado Buffaloes, you're hoping, you can get that one and then get, maybe 1 or 2 in the Big 12 tournament. Looking at the first 4 out here, he currently has listed Arizona State, Utah, Kansas, and Richmond. Any one in those, particular teams that stand out to you, coach?
Yeah, well, Utah plays tonight, right? So we'll see them. I forget who they play, but
I actually take that back. They're at Colorado tonight, I think, coach.
okay,
So
all
I
right.
forgot, Colorado had that name. So, certainly a big game there.
Yeah, for sure. Arizona State they've got BYU and Texas Tech left. Um, and I mean, if they can beat Texas Tech, that'll be good for them and do well in the tournament. They might have a chance. Obviously, they've won 20 some games and done really well this year in terms of overall improvement from last year. But I still think they have some work to do. And then Richmond, they lost to Rhode Island the first time they played them. They beat George Mason. Rhode Island's in first place. They beat George Mason, and they have an opportunity to play Rhode Island again this week. So those are games I think they need to win. And I don't know if they don't, then they're going to have to win the tournament to get in. I think based on the record this year. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I agree. I think, both, Richmond and Rhode Island suffered, quad 4 losses, I believe, last week. And so the problem is, and you and me both know this, we talk a lot about the mid-major, there just is so little margin for error. And when you're trying to compete for, an at large like they are, you really just can't afford those losses in conference play, no matter how well you do in the non-conference. I think that's the really tricky part about a mid-major, and the landscape of college basketball right now is that you can go out and have an unbelievable non-conference, right? And you can get your net to as high as it could possibly be, without going, maybe you have 1 or 2 losses there to a P4 or whatever that looks like. But when you go into conference season, you aren't afforded the same margin of error that a P4 is in a conference schedule. A P4 can lose 5 or 6 or whatever that looks, like again. But I think at the mid-major level, you're just punished. And I think that is going to be the case for the A10 teams that were in the conversation for at-larges.
Yeah, when you're at the mid-major level, there is no such thing as a good loss.
Mhm.
Like you lose it, you lose, and so the thing that Rhode Island has over Richmond is that they have a P4 win. They beat NC State. NC State's sixth right now in the standings for the ACC. So they're rooting for NC State to do really well in
Mhm.
the tournament because they have that win over them. Richmond, I don't think has any. They don't have any major wins. So that's why I say if they lose to Rhode Island this weekend, they're going to have to win the tournament. I think to get in.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that's just, a situation where I think last year, when we had the 3-bid Ivy. You had, multiple from the A10 that were, looking. You had James Madison that was left. I think there was maybe a greater argument last season in terms of where they all were because they had some of those, significant wins in the
Yeah.
non-conference. And this season that just didn't pan out for, a lot of the mid majors. But like you said, it's just there's not a good loss. You can be in a P4 and lose a game or two, and it's considered not a bad loss. But at the mid major level, that's just not the case, I think. And then you're looking again down to the next four out. And we talked about Stanford, we talked about South Dakota State. Oh, we haven't talked about South Dakota State, but we also talked about BYU. And then you have a California team again in that ACC.
Yeah, the Jackrabbits. I think they're going to have to win their tournament to get in as well. And Stanford they're going to be so good. They're just still. I mean, they've got basically a year under their belt right now, but they're so young. They are going to are really good. I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm not writing them off this year, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how they are next year when they're a year older, because they're extremely talented. That coaching staff did a tremendous job recruiting.
Yeah, and I hope in this day and age of college basketball for some young teams that we see that we get to see those teams grow together. I think that's the really tricky situation is when you look at teams right now that have a lot of youth and you think about what they can become. And I think as someone a purist of the game, you really hope that you get to see those teams evolve together.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You hope Stanford's Stanford, and they have a standard and they have a legacy, and obviously money comes into the picture now. But you hope the type of student that they recruit, the type of basketball player that they recruit, values that education as well as the legacy. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like when you are young like that, you just can't teach experience. And so that's what Stanford's getting this season is a ton of experience. And I think certainly the future is very bright there, no matter how the rest of this season unfolds for that Stanford Cardinal team. I will note with South Dakota State, it will be very interesting if North Dakota State, who has at this point been undefeated in the league, I think they actually play South Dakota State maybe tomorrow night. If they would be in the conversation for an at-large if they were to slip up in the conference tournament. So another one to definitely note, especially for some of these bubble teams that, are in the P4 conferences, that could be a situation of a bid stealer.
Yeah, that's what makes it so fun, right?
Yeah.
Get to this point of the year, and every game matters, and you got to be a little lucky. You got to be healthy. You got to have great depth if you want to be successful. So I will probably watch that game tomorrow. I didn't know that they were playing tomorrow.
I believe I'm gonna double check on that because I'm pretty sure that is when it is taking place, but I don't want to lead people astray. Yes, South Dakota State at North Dakota State. The only thing, the summit is like they're not on ESPN Plus or anything. They have like a Summit League
Or maybe I
TV.
won't be
So
watching it tomorrow.
yeah, so the
Well,
summit
I
is
can
very
watch it on Synergy. I can watch it on Synergy.
you have to wait and then it pops up
Get
and then
access
you can
to
go back and watch it. But
Thanks,
I think that
ESPN.
is yeah, that is definitely, I think a conference tournament that will bring a lot of intrigue in terms of bubble teams that are looking at how those scores unfold because certainly that result, I think the Ivy could potentially have the same effect. And I think the A10 would be a really interesting situation if Rhode Island gets knocked off, if they would still have a possibility of an at large.
And there's where it's so important if you're at Power Four that you need to win because they'll be stealing bids if you don't do your job and a scenario like what you just talked about happens.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think do you have any other thoughts on, kind of the bubble teams or the bracketology as a whole, coach, right now?
I think like I said, that Virginia Tech versus Virginia game is going to be huge, and then Baylor at TCU is going to be huge. For seeding purposes, not necessarily to get into the tournament. So, um, yeah, that's those are the games I'll be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely that point of the year where you're kinda looking at the scoreboard and seeing which games are gonna shuffle the standings, and, you get into the conference tournament and seeding becomes very important in terms of who you maybe match up better with, the opponent, you wanna avoid, and, I think the best thing is to go out and win your games because then you put yourself in the best position possible.
Yeah, you cannot depend on what other teams are going to do. You have to take care of business yourself, and it really is so cliche, but one game at a time, right? You do know no matter what happens here this weekend, you have at least one more opportunity in the first round of your conference tournament, which anything can happen, and that's what's so fun about those tournaments. Even if you're a team that's the last team in your conference tournament, you have an opportunity to make some waves. So I love this time of the year because everything's on the table and people are playing their hardest, and you got to be really lucky, and the games are fun.
Yeah, absolutely, and the best part is, starting next week, we get games during the day again pretty consistently because the conference tournaments are all tipping off. I did wanna make note, the Her Hoop Stats bracketology, by Megan Gower will be updated tomorrow. We just went off the most recent one, from ESPN and Charlie Cream, but the Her Hoop Stats, will be updated tomorrow. Um, Coach, it's the best time of the year. Let's all enjoy it. I know certainly there's not enough TVs to catch all the games and the scores, but if you are watching, listening, make sure you're liking, subscribing, you're following us at Her Hoop Stats, Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter. Most importantly, get to the website herhoopstats.com. There's newsletters, a ton of information, obviously any of the stats that you want, but enjoy this time of the year. The madness is almost here. We are almost to March, which is possibly my favorite month.
Yeah, and let me just say, thoughts go out to everyone impacted by the storm that are still digging themselves out, probably for the fourth time on the East Coast. Wish you guys well.
Absolutely. And like I say, that's why, you pick the indoor sport where it's sunny and,
Right.
70 degrees every day, coach. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Like I said, enjoy the hoops and we will see you back tomorrow.